Hello everyone, this is Undiga the Nigerian fertility lawyer. Today I'd like to talk about parenthood and parental rights, generally speaking, and how it's applicable in assisted reproduction, especially in surrogacy and gamete donation. So, generally speaking, in life, people only the reason why people go through all the pain, go through adoption, go through surrogacy, etc., and all the fertility treatments is to be able to become parents, to be able to have a child to call their own. But legally speaking, we speak in terms of very specific terms about parenthood, which is the totality of the legal status of being in a parental relationship with a child. And parenthood also has a number of other concepts that are linked to it, that are related to it, which are part and parcel of this idea of being a parent. So, parenthood refers to the legal recognition of being either the legal mother or the legal father of a child. And there are very specific ways in which parenthood is acquired. And then you also go on to talk about things like parental responsibility and custody, which are all related, but which can get a little bit confusing for people who are not lawyers. Now, like I said, parenthood is the totality of being in a parent to a child. And generally speaking, parenthood is acquired in different ways. And acquiring legal motherhood is slightly different from acquiring legal fatherhood. The general principle is that any woman who gives birth to a child goes through 9 months or so of pregnancy and goes through the act of giving birth to a child. It is only that woman that is legally recognized as the legal mother of the child. So legal motherhood is acquired through pregnancy and childbirth. Fatherhood is slightly different. That's because men, of course, do not carry pregnancies. So if a man is married to a woman, because of the facts of that marriage, every time that woman gives birth to a child, the child is presumed to be the child of the husband of the woman. So that's what we call legally the presumption of fatherhood. And that presumption means that if there is a legally recognized marriage between a man and a woman, every time a child is born, the child is presumed to be the child of the man. If there is no marriage existing between the intending mother and the intending father, a man can still acquire fatherhood by what we call acknowledgement. So basically, the woman gets pregnant and says, "This is the man who's responsible," and the man steps forward and says, "Yes, I am responsible for the pregnancy of this woman, and I hereby acknowledge by myself voluntarily that I am the father of the child." But there are other cases that we all know where the man does not voluntarily acknowledge that he's the father. But we'll deal with those questions later. But generally speaking, these are the ways in which you acquire motherhood and fatherhood, and they have very specific implications for assisted reproduction or adoption, even. So, in parenthood, the fact that you're a parent, it means that you have a number of rights and a number of obligations. In terms of the rights, you have the right to give the child a name. You have the right to take the child wherever you want to take the child. You have the right to share your citizenship with that child. You have the right to make welfare decisions, including decisions regarding medical treatment and surgery, etc., for your child. These are the rights that you have because you're a parent. You also have a number of responsibilities as a parent. Some of the responsibilities are, generally speaking, to attend to the welfare of the child, make sure the child is properly taken care of, make sure they go to school, make sure they receive adequate parental care, that they receive medical care, and so on and so forth. So you can think in terms of, when you talk about parenthood, in terms of rights and obligations. Now, very often, because of the environment in which we live, people do not really understand that parenthood is actually a big umbrella term for a number of different things. Now, very often, you only appreciate the fact that parenthood or parental rights refer to a number of different things. You only appreciate it when there is a divorce. So, in a divorce, the mother and father of the child decide that they are dissolving their marriage and that they're going to live in two separate homes. And then the court has to make a decision about who pays the child's school fees and where does the child live and where the child will spend their holidays. And in that context, you find a splitting of the parental rights and obligations. So you think about in that such an example, custody. Where would the child live? Which place would be the child's primary residence, for instance? Which place would be the child's secondary residence? Who will have actual custody of the child and who will have access to the child where the child is? What will be the terms and conditions of the access? So these are different elements of parental rights. And why do I go into all these explanations? Because in a surrogacy, because of the way our laws are framed, in a surrogacy, a surrogate becomes automatically the legal mother of the child by virtue of the fact that she carried the pregnancy and gave birth to that child, irrespective, I emphasize, irrespective of where the eggs or the sperm came from, irrespective of who paid for the treatment, and irrespective of the surrogacy agreement, the affidavit, or the birth certificate, irrespective of any of these things that I've mentioned, the surrogate is always the legal mother of the child. So the question you ask yourself is, if the surrogate is the legal mother of the child at birth, then how do the intending parents acquire legal parenthood? That's a question that you need to ask. Now, in many countries, motherhood is always assigned, in many countries, including Nigeria. The starting point is that the mother is always the woman that gives birth to the child. Now, because of the presumption of marriage, the presumption of legitimacy in marriage, which I talked about, where every time a woman gives birth, if a married woman gives birth, every time she gives birth, the child is presumed to be her husband's child. It also means that if the surrogate is married, her husband, if she has one, automatically becomes the legal father of the child. So you see, there are very serious implications about doing some due diligence about the identity and the marital status of the surrogate because of all these things. Now, very often in surrogacies in Nigeria, the surrogate would have signed some documents and agreements and said that to the effect that immediately the child is born, she will hand over custody of the child. Very often, she might not even see the child. The child will be handed over, or custody of the child will be handed over to the intending parents in the delivery room immediately. Now, the fact that the surrogate has handed over custody of the child, or if you like, technically what we say, she has relinquished custody over the child immediately after birth, does not change the fact that she's still the legal mother of the child. The fact that the hospital where the child was born has registered the names of the people who paid for the surrogacy, the intending mother and father, as the parents of the child on the birth certificate, does not mean that the surrogate is no longer the legal mother of the child. And the reason for that is that there are very specific legal processes that need to be done under Nigerian law in order to change the parenthood of a child. So the idea of making this video is to make you understand that in a surrogacy, for instance, the legal mother of the child will always be the surrogate. And if she is married, the legal father of the child will become her husband. So the question you have to ask yourself if you're coming for surrogacy in Nigeria is, how do I acquire legal parenthood over the surrogate born child after the birth? That's the question you need to be asking yourself and asking your legal advisors. The fact that you're holding the birth certificate that says you're the parent does not make you a parent. The fact that you have a surrogacy agreement that where the surrogate said, I will hand over this child to you and I will no longer be a parent, does not actually achieve any change in parental status. So you need to get proper legal advice about what you need to do to acquire legal parenthood over that child, even though immediately after the birth you may already have physical custody over that child. I hope this video has been helpful. Look forward to hearing from you. Take care.